You can see that I've been licensed since 2009. Next slide.
Yeah, you also want an agent that has a really old looking license, like that.
You see how old that is?
Yeah.
That thing looks like, my goodness, it belongs in the Bible. All right, so I'm a seller representative. I'm certified as a seller representative. And why is that important to you? As a buyer, I know what the seller wants to see, and the agent who is representing the seller, what they expect to make a good first impression on your behalf, the buyer. Okay, so that's very, very important. Next slide. I'm also certified with working short sales and foreclosures. Probably 1 out of 5 properties out there are going to be distressed properties. So you want an agent that's going to know, hey, listen, this deal's going to work, this one's not, especially based on your time frames and your prices, and there are a lot of things going on. Everyone loves a renovated house, but if it's a short sale and it was flipped quickly in 30 days, you can't buy it for another 60 days because the bank put a limit on its title and how quickly it can and cannot be sold. So if they bought it for $300,000 and now they're asking $450,000, the bank puts a limitation. You can't jump the price that quickly inside of 90 days. So you want an agent that's experienced that knows these types of things, so you don't get emotionally involved in something that can't be yours within the time frame that you want. Next slide. So I'm also certified or very savvy in veterans loans. Obviously, Raul's here, so he knows a lot more than me, but together we'll work as a team. Anybody here a veteran? Family members that are veterans? All right, so Lloyd's got it. But Raul is definitely experienced in providing loans for veterans, and again, we'll work as a team in that area. Next slide. So I have been in the business 14 years, you can tell the age of my license, right? And I've closed well over 120 homes. Next. So, realtor representation for the buyer. Having a professional real estate agent is key. As a professional, I can walk you through the buying process at no cost to you, at least not for now. That's probably going to change in the next 1 to 2 years. There's going to be a time, really, really soon, where the buyer is going to have to start paying for their own realtor representation. So, it is very important for you to take advantage of that window now while you don't have to pay for it. There are lawsuits going on in California, I believe, that are going to affect the entire United States. So right now, isn't it hard enough just to come up with the down payment, the closing costs, and on top of that, having to pay for commission? Or else what happens? You get left fending for yourself. That's like going to court with no attorney, for example. You know, you want someone in your corner working for your best behalf. So act on it now. There is most certainly a sense of urgency in that area. The currency by which you pay me is loyalty. That's a, no-brainer there. Why not take full advantage of it? Next slide.
Jerry, I have a question.
Yes.
So regarding what you just said about the future, which might cost them more to buy a home, so you mean to tell me that if I buy now, it'll cost me what, $10,000 less than if I buy when the law changes?
Potentially.
Okay.
Yes. All right, so we're gonna go over, this is just a quick outline, renting versus owning, myths about buying a home, household income, credit, qualifying for a mortgage, grants for first-time homebuyers, which is what we were speaking about earlier, and making offers. Title company and deposits, we have Jason. Property inspection, we have William. And homeowners insurance, we have Lloyd. When you rent, there's no interest in the property. No interest meaning you don't own it. There's no benefit to you. When you own, it's a flexible asset. When you rent, there's no interest in the property. Again, it sounds redundant, but when you own, you have an inheritance. How many of you have kids? You want an inheritance for your kids? You should be owning something. At that point, you have an interest. When you rent, the rent increases. How many of you had your rent increase? Wasn't COVID a killer? An absolute killer. But when you own, your mortgage is fixed. It's not going to change. But if anything, when the market and the economy changes and the interest rates go down, you can refinance and reduce your monthly mortgage payments. That's what a lot of people did in 2021. They probably had a 7% interest rate, and when they saw it drop down to 3%, they refinanced. Now they have a mortgage that's lower than everyone else's rent. Isn't that amazing? And you will have the opportunity to do that once you are a homeowner. When you're renting, you cannot remodel or improve the property. But when you own, you can remodel or improve according to your preferences. Next slide. So the worksheet, we're going to go ahead and skip that and come back to that at the end, and we'll fill in all of those red areas as we go. Okay, next slide. So myths about buying a home. All right, buying a home is hard. That's the myth. The truth is, buying a home is easy for you if you are educated and prepared, which is what you're doing right here today. Myth number 2, the process is too complicated. The truth is, the home buying process can be broken down easily with us as your real estate professionals. So you have your team here. You have your realtor, your lender, your title agent, your inspector, and your insurance agent. That's everything under one roof right here, right now. Myth number 2, you have to pay off all of your debts before you can buy. That is not true. You don't have to pay all of your debts off. Some of them will have to be paid down, but we're going to get into that when Raul starts speaking. So the truth, you do not have to pay off all your debts first. Myth number 4, talking to a loan officer is scary. Raul, can you stand up? Does he look scary?
I strike fear into your hearts. What's going on?
Yeah, Raul's not scary. Next slide. One more slide, Raul. There we go. All right. So myth number 5, you need to have excellent credit to buy a home. The truth is, you don't need excellent credit to buy. You just need a 640. And Raul is going to dig into that even more in detail. Myth number 6, I can do it on my own. I don't need the help of a realtor. The truth is, doing it on your own can cost you on pitfalls such as bad roofs, bad ACs, bad electrical system, and bad plumbing. On top of that, you could pay more than what you need to, just on the price alone. And then think about the time that you spend trying to do it by yourself. I do this every day for a living. For me, it's kind of like I do it with my eyes closed. So it's just, there's better options. Myth number 7, I can do it on my own and save the commission. The truth is, the buyer's agents don't charge the buyer. Right now, it's for free. We get paid from the seller, at least for now. Myth number 8, and on top of that, if you're thinking about saving the commission, doing it directly with the seller, you know what he knows? He knows what you're thinking. You're saving too. So he's going to try to bring you up more. So myth number 8, I have to use the listing agent. The listing agent is the realtor who represents the seller. So I have to use the listing agent to buy the property. The listing agent is likely working for who? Seller. The seller's best interest, not. So keep that in mind. Next slide. All right, we can skip that one for now. All right, so the home buying and owning terms and definitions. So we're gonna learn all of these in a couple moments. So first-time home buyers, what is a first-time home buyer? Someone who has not owned a home in 3 years. Have any of you ever owned at all? Never? Okay. So when you're talking with other people, friends, family, whomever, if they bought a home but it's been sold for 3 years or more, they are a first-time home buyer all over again. So, and that applies to you in the future as well. What is a mortgage? What is principal? What is interest? What is PMI? What is a rate lock? What is DTI? What is a CMA? Down payment, also known as earnest money deposit. Closing cost, equity, amortization, and homestead. So, next slide. These are all the definitions of that, which we're going to go over at the end. So, I told you what a first-time home buyer is. What is a mortgage? A loan using your home as collateral. A lien on your home, the amount borrowed with interest. So you're borrowing money to get a house, but that money is a legal lien against your house. So the bank makes sure you pay them back. Amortization is a Latin word for kill. In this case, it's the debt that's being killed off, paying off a loan over a period of time. Principal, the amount owed on the loan minus the amount you've prepaid, not including interest, and we'll get to that in more detail a little bit later. Next slide. Interest, the cost or percent you pay for borrowing money from a lender or bank, which would be Raul in this case. He'll be handling that. PMI, private mortgage insurance. It protects the lender, not you. So basically, if you default on your loan, that insurance kicks in and pays off the loan, and then they resell the property to someone else, but then you have to deal with that leftover debt. Okay? Rate lock. Your interest rate won't change between the offer and the closing, provided the dates don't change. So that's important when you have a professional such as myself, keeping those time restraints for you and protecting that rate lock, not letting time pass, not being lackadaisical. And I'm like a coach. You know, when you go to a gym and you hire a personal trainer, who's calling the shots? You or the personal trainer? Personal trainer. So as your realtor, when I say drop and give me 50, I want you to drop and give me 50, okay? So because I got a job to do for you and keep you within those dates and those time frames to keep that money in your pocket and get you a home. DTI, debt to income ratio, and we're gonna go over that more when Raul speaks. CMA is a comparative marketing analysis. It's what I do. It's a detailed report to determine how much a home is worth. So basically, who here knows what an appraisal is? So it's when I, the realtor, do an appraisal, kind of, sort of, myself. I can't technically call it an appraisal, but 14 years in the business, you know. Next slide. Down payment, okay, it's collateral payment to prove commitment to purchase a home. Okay, so when you want to buy a home, you can't just write up a contract and give it to the seller. There's got to be skin in the game. There's got to be collateral. And that's the down payment, or the old-fashioned way of saying it, earnest money deposit. Usually 3 to 20%, okay? So of the purchase price. So earnest money deposit and closing costs go hand in hand. Two different things, but on the same piece of paper, okay? So a closing cost, a collection of itemized costs to complete a sale, which Jason is going to get into that in detail. Equity, the difference between how much your home is worth and how much you owe on the mortgage. That's your equity. That's basically money in your bank that eventually, provided the economy is right and the value is there, you'll be able to cash that out if you so desire. Homestead, not Miami. Homestead is the home that you claim as your primary residence, and it comes with tax benefits. All right, next slide. All right, so here's an example of what equity is. So your property is worth $500,000, right? Minus the money you owe on the property, which would be your mortgage. So you've had your home for probably 15 to 20 years. So you've paid off $300,000, you owe $200,000, $300,000 is your equity. Some people pay down in the beginning, they have a huge lump sum. They can walk into equity on day one. It varies. Or if you bought low and the market value went up, time gave you equity. You know, the economy gave you equity. You see? So it will vary on the circumstances. Either way, that's the simple equation for understanding equity. Next slide. So spending plan and tips. So we all got to come up with a down payment. We all got to come up with closing costs. We have the budget. So create a household spending plan. And you got to sit down. You got to do the hard work. This is not cute. It's not fun. You got to sit at your dining room table. You got to break out pen and paper, get your laptop, look at your bank account, get the budget going, and make sure that you are on track to have the savings to purchase a home. Determine your level of comfort. Keep your spending to a minimum. That's lifestyle. That's going out on the weekends. You know, maybe you don't eat steak. Maybe you eat ramen noodles like a college kid. You got to do what you got to do. You want a home or not? You know. So manage and reduce your debt. Cut back on some of those extra utility bills. Watch those subscriptions that are coming out of your Netflix and Disney Plus, all of those different things. Do not be discouraged, stay encouraged. This is not a sprint, it's a marathon. You gotta be in this for the long haul. Next slide. Set a budget. You're a smart home buyer. You realize the importance of setting a budget for yourself, so you tally up your monthly expenses and subtract this number from your net monthly income, i.e. your take-home pay. You're careful to allow for savings accounts, contributions, entertainment, lifestyle expenses, and other things that are important. So, a couple of things that I always promote, they've helped me over time. Excel has already templated budgeting systems. If you have Microsoft Word or anything similar to it, open it up and use it. There's Dave Ramsey. I'm a huge fan of Dave Ramsey, even though he's against credit. You know, you got to work in between, you know. But he's got some really good principles for saving and paying down debt. Your bank app, your bank account, almost every bank account has something in there when you log in to help you manage your money. Use the tools that are available to you. And then if you're really old-fashioned, you can use the envelope system. So next slide. So there's an example of an Excel spreadsheet that you probably have and you're not using most likely. Next slide. Dave Ramsey, Financial Peace. It was a game changer for me when I took that years ago. I highly recommend it. It's very popular in the churches especially. Next slide. That's an example of PNC's bank app. You can manage your money. Go ahead.
I watch him, he come on TV at night time.
Say again?
Dave Ramsey, I watch him. I watch his program on TBN.
Oh, yes. Yeah, he's great. He is absolutely phenomenal. But no matter who you bank with, they're going to have something that you ought to be using. Next slide. And then, of course, there's the old-fashioned way. This is what hurts the most. And it hurts good because it's easy to swipe that credit card and you don't feel the pain. But when you give cash, it hurts. You know? And when you have that envelope system, the envelope stays home. There's more chances that you leave home without the cash. And you know what? Guess what? You're not spending it that much. It makes a difference. Next slide. All right, so start saving now. Be aware of the costs incurred during the home buying process. There's the down payment. Of course, this might be 3 to 20% of the purchase price unless you use a VA loan. But the home buying expenses don't stop there. You also have to pay closing costs, and those can add up to several thousands of dollars 3 to 4% of the purchase price on average. The main idea is start saving early. Next slide. All right, introducing Raul Lopez, our loan officer.
So your ability to qualify for a mortgage will be based on 4 factors, and I call them the 4 pillars of mortgage financing. Your employment history. What do you do? How long you been doing it? How do you do it? Your income. How much you make? How do you get paid? It matters. Are you an employee? Are you a W-2 employee? Do you own your own company? Do you work for someone? You get paid 1099. How much taxes are deducted from your paycheck? Your savings. Who do you bank with? And how much money you have in that bank? How much money you have in cash under the pillow at home? And your credit. Last but not least, what's your FICO score? Earlier Jerry said that you need a minimum of a 640 FICO score to buy a home. That is not entirely accurate, but if you have a 640, it makes it a lot easier for a first-time home buyer to go through the home buying process. That's not to say that if you have a below 640 FICO score, that is impossible to buy a home. So, 4 pillars, remember. Employment history, income, assets, and credit. Next slide. What is the back-end DTI? So the debt-to-income ratio, Jerry spoke about it in some depth on earlier slides, but it's basically the difference between your income and your obligations, which include your new mortgage. So to use round numbers, if you make $10,000 a month and your mortgage is going to be $3,000 a month, that's 30%, right, of the income. So your debt-to-income ratio, the housing expense is 30% of your income, right? But then to those 3,000, you have to add your car payment, you have to add your credit card minimum payments, and maybe you have student loans. So let's say combined between the mortgage and everything else you owe that you have to pay monthly, your expenses are $4,000 a month. So that's 40% debt-to-income ratio. That is the number that dictates how much you can afford, right? FHA will allow me to go to 47% housing and 57% complete ratio, and conventional, which is another mortgage product, will allow me to go to 50%. So you can make $10,000 a month and your monthly obligations can be $5,000 and you can still qualify for that home that gives you that ratio, right? And then there's always 2 numbers. The number that the bank says you qualify for and the number that you feel comfortable with. Because maybe I can pre-approve you for a $500,000 home, but that comes with the price tag of $400 to $4,500 a month, and you say, oh, Raul, I don't want to pay that much. So that maxes out your ratios. Maybe you tell me I'm more comfortable with a $3,000 a month payment. And then we adjust that price from $500,000, we bring it down to $400,000 or $380,000 or $420,000, whatever the case might be, right? Next slide.
So I gave that one as an example there as the numbers.
Is this the next slide? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll skip that. Okay, let's talk about credit scores, right? There is three bureaus that control the data that creditors report to your credit history: Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. And that's where it's all there. You have a Visa credit card that has a $5,000 limit and a $2,500 balance. You're 50% on that Visa, right? That's where it gets reported. Visa, Capital One, they all report to these 3 guys right here. And they are the ones that tell me how good credit history you have. So what happens if you pay your credit card late? They report. Your FICO score goes down. If you had a 755 in Experian with a late payment, drops as much as 100 points, right? So becoming familiar with these 3 bureaus is very important as a first-time home buyer. And you can go online to transunion.com, experian.com, and equifax.com and create free accounts with them. And take a look at what you have there, right? And there's also apps now like Credit Karma and the sort that gives you an idea of what your credit history looks like. Next slide. Experian Boost. I'm not very familiar with Experian Boost, but I hear is really good. And
if you sign up for that and you do it, it's rather easy. You will see a numerical jump almost like within a day or 3.
I have seen the commercials, but I've never seen anyone use it. Are you familiar, Jerry?
Yeah, I've used it.
Okay.
I've
Right.
used it.
So how much did your FICO score go up, or whoever used it?
Give me 719.
Well, that's good. That's good. However, Credit Karma doesn't give you the true score. There is 3 versions of your FICO score. A lot of people don't know this, but when you go shopping for a car and they pull your credit at the dealership, you get one version. When you apply for a credit card, you get a different version. And when you apply for a mortgage with me, you get a whole different version. Usually the mortgage is the more strict version of the 3 credit bureau FICO scores, right?
Credit
So-
Karma is the least reliable. The least reliable.
I think Credit Karma is good for you to keep up to what's happening on your credit, right? If somebody pulls your credit, Credit Karma notifies you. If a new account shows up, Credit Karma notifies you. If a late payment gets reported, Credit Karma notifies you. The problem is also with Credit Karma is that it only works with 2 of the 3 bureaus. It doesn't give you complete information. I think Experian is not there. It has TransUnion and Equifax. I don't remember which of the 3, but I think it's Experian. Next slide. Build your credit. This is one of many prepaid credit cards that can help rapidly build credit to make you finance worthy in the bank's eyes. Okay, so there's a few things. That one is good. Capital One is also good. If you go to CapitalOne.com, they have a credit starter credit card that is usually easy to get approved. And worst case scenario, you can also, I think Capital One and First Premier Bank also offers this. You can open a secure credit card. If you have 0 credit, you can have a friend or family authorize you on an existing credit card just to get the FICO score jump started. And then once you've had that FICO score for 2 or 3 months, then you go to Capital One or First Premier and obtain a credit card of your own. You always need a credit card of your own, right? Because an authorized credit card from a family member will give you a FICO score, but it's not enough. The bank wants to see that you have a credit card of your own, even if it's a small $300 credit card. Right, next slide. Get pre-approved. So during the mortgage pre-approval process, the lender will examine your financial status to see if you qualify for a loan. They'll also tell you how much of a home you can afford. This helps you in 2 ways. It helps you narrow your search to properties you can afford, and it helps ensure that sellers will take you seriously. So the pre-approval process will give you the max that you can qualify for. Like when I issue a pre-approval letter for you, it's because I've looked at your credit, your income, your assets, and your employment history, and I've determined that based on those 4 pillars, this is the house you can afford, right? And then when you go out there house hunting with Jerry, and you put an offer on a house, that offer goes backed up by my pre-approval letter and additional information if the listing agent wants additional information, right? Like proof of funds, right? Sometimes we take the first page of your bank statement, we black out the account number, right? But we show the seller that you have the funds that are necessary to take you seriously, right? Next slide. My role. So I'm here to get you pre-approved, to give you an estimate of what the financing will look like. So when you go house hunting with Jerry and you like that house, Jerry's gonna call me and say, hey, so-and-so that you pre-approved likes 123 Mockingbird Road, and we're gonna offer this much. And then I'm gonna plug those numbers into your pre-approval, and then you're gonna get a text or a phone call from me with details as to what I think your monthly payment is gonna be on that house and your total cash to close. And then you will determine at that point if that's the house you want to place an offer on, right? So that's part of the pre-approval process. The loan estimate, you get it specific to each house that you offer on. The closing disclosure is more of an advanced step in the process when you already are under contract and you're almost ready to close the house. You get the closing disclosure like 3 days before closing. The appraisal is also part of that process. When you go on the contract, we send your loan to the bank and we order an appraisal. We want a third-party professional opinion of value. Because you went on the contract to buy that house for $500,000, the bank wants to know that it's worth $500,000. So what happens if it's not? If it's not worth $500,000 and the appraisal comes in lower, it says the house is valued at $480,000, then that opens the door for you to negotiate with the seller and tell them, hey, no, I know I signed for $500,000, but the appraisal says it's only worth $480,000. So then the seller can say, yeah, we'll lower it to $480,000. Or the seller can say, I don't care what the appraisal says, I want my 500. And then you can decide if you want to pay him the extra 20,000 right out of your own pocket, or you cancel the contract, get your money back, and start from scratch on another house, right? Those are options that the appraisal will give you. The interest rate, payment, and escrows. The interest rate is what you pay over the life of the loan. You know, interest rates are whatever the market dictates interest rates are, right? Interest rate payments and escrows. So the escrows is the part of the payment that pertains to taxes and insurance. So in most cases, when you make a monthly payment on your mortgage, it's made up of 4 things: principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, right? Principal and interest is the mortgage, and then taxes and insurance is you got to pay property taxes, and you have to keep your property insured for as long as you own it, or for as long as you have a mortgage on it. So when the payment, let's say the payment is $1,000, 500 of that goes to principal and interest, 250 goes to taxes, and 250 goes to insurance. Just an example. The loan approval happens about a week after you go under contract, right? So you go under contract, we submit your loan to the bank with all your bank statements, your credit report, your pay stubs, your W-2s, your tax returns, all that stuff. And then the bank will issue a loan approval, right? And that's usually about a week after you go on the contract, and then it's called a conditional loan approval because it's a document that says we've approved this loan for you, but before we close it, we need this list of items. And then on that list of items will be the appraisal, the title work, which Jason takes care of. Maybe they'll ask about a deposit you have on your bank statement. They're looking at your last 2 months worth of bank statements, and if they see a $5,000 cash deposit there, they might want to know where it came from. That's why it's very important to not keep cash under the pillow when you're buying a house. It's got to be in the bank, and it has to be there for 2 months, right? But once you meet all those conditions on the initial approval, then the bank issues what's called a final approval or a clear to close. And that's when everybody smiles and we know we can close the deal and you can get the keys to your home, right? Next slide. Checklist of documents needed. What do we need? We need clear copies of your driver's license, your social security card. We don't always need your social security card, some people lose it. We just need 2 forms of ID. So if you don't have a social security card, you can replace it with a passport. Yes?
How long did you say you have to have the money in the bank? Like the money you're gonna put down on the house. Like let's say you have like 3,000, 5,000.
Under your pillow?
Yeah.
Oh, under the pillow. Oh.
So that depends,
And you
right?
put it in the bank this week.
So there's 2 scenarios. So you have the money and you can source it. See, if I ask you where you got it from, you can't really give me a straight answer, right? So in that case, you got to put it in the bank, and it has to stay there for 2 banking cycles.
Oh, okay.
Because the bank will ask me for 2 months. So if that deposit happened 3 months ago, then the bank will no longer question it. Because they only ask 2 months.
This question is, you know, island people have a thing that they throw in your partner.
Esu. I'm familiar.
Yeah, so they have money put down under the pillow like that.
So however that money came by, I mean, there's something called, especially after 9/11, they implemented the Patriot Act, because there was a lot of terrorist money laundering going on through home buying. So it's a law that we have to abide by. And the way we comply with that law is by making sure that over the last 2 months there is no questionable deposits into your bank account, right?
Okay.
And if there are, we have to be able to source it, right? So did you sell a diamond ring and you have a pawn shop receipt that says that they paid you $5,000 in cash for your diamond ring, right? There are ways to source cash deposits, but they have to make sense to the bank. We can't just make up stuff, right?
Okay.
But if you deposit that and you leave it there for 2 banking cycles, you don't have to worry about sourcing it, because we only are required to provide 2 months bank statements to the bank.
I have a question.
Yes.
If I sell my property in Haiti and they send me the money,
Mm-hmm.
so I cannot, do I have to give them the receipt that I sell my house in Haiti?
So if you sell an asset abroad, whatever documentation that sale produced in Haiti needs to be saved, translated to English, and made part of your loan application package. And then that $50,000 or $100,000 that came on a wire transfer from a Haitian bank into your US bank can be sourced and justified like that. However, if the deposit comes in today and you go on the contract 2 months from now, then that's 2 months already gone by, then the bank won't question it. But if it is within the last 2 months, we have to be able to source it. If we cannot source it, the bank will not allow you to use those funds for your purchase. There's been instances where there is a $10,000 deposit into my buyer's bank account and we can't source it, and the bank simply says we need to back that out. We need to ignore that that deposit exists, and whatever is left, if it's enough to close the transaction, we can close, otherwise we can't. Very important. Okay. Pay stubs, covering 30 days. So if you are a W-2 employee, we need 30 days worth of pay stubs. And in my case, I always ask for more than 30 days. I actually go as far as asking for the final pay stub of 2023 or the year before, and the final pay stub of 2022, the year before that. Yes, Jerry?
My apologies, everyone. I just want to save the questions to the end so that we can get around to Jason, Bill, and Lloyd. And then at the end, we're going to have just open discussion, and hopefully these guys can stay, but if they have to leave, then they can leave as well.
Okay, so no more questions.
Write them down.
Write them down. W-2s for the last 2 years, 1099s for the last 2 years, tax returns. If you haven't filed the 2023 tax returns, we need 22 and 21. If you've already filed them, we at least need the W-2 and 1099 for 2023, which you all should have received them by now. The last 2 months of assets, like I said, the more money you show on your loan applications, the better the bank will look at you. So if you have a 401k, even if you don't intend to use it for the purchase, give it to me. Make it part of your package, because that shows you have reserves. Reserves are important. And if you're short on one of those 4 mortgage pillars, assets could be a compensating factor to get your loan approved, right? And a complete credit report authorization, well, as long as you authorize me to pull your credit, then that's a verbal authorization can be acceptable too. And of course the mortgage loan application, which happens during the pre-approval and once the contract is executed. Next slide. Do not change jobs. These are the don'ts. Never change jobs without telling me. It's not always a deal killer if it's done right. There are ways you can change job in the middle, even if you're in the middle of a purchase contract. Sometimes when you change jobs, that kills the deal. Not always. As long as you, before you pull that trigger, you talk to me. Hey Raul, I got a great opportunity. They're going to pay me this much more. We analyze it. And if I see that it won't hurt, I'll tell you, go ahead and switch. We'll be fine. But if I see it's going to kill your deal, I'll tell you, wait until we close. Can you postpone? Can you call that new employer and tell them, hey, I can't start until a certain date because I'm in the middle of a home buying process. Do not go shopping. Don't run out your credit cards. So if your DTI on approval was 45% and you went crazy on rooms to go and bought a bunch of furniture, then your DTI went up to 60%, your pre-approval is no longer valid. You just killed the deal. So don't go shopping. Don't go crazy. If anything changes, if any changes happen related to credit and finances, yeah, let me know. You know, it's not that you cannot do it, period. It's just that you have to consult the expert before you do it. And I will let you know if it's okay to do it and how to do it properly without jeopardizing your chances. Do not co-sign or give, like, my nephew wants to buy a car, and I'm going to be the nice uncle who's going to co-sign for him. No, it doesn't work. Nephew, I'll authorize you on my credit card. I'll help you build your credit. I am not going to lend you my credit. Never good, never good. And we minorities, we tend to do that a lot because we want to help people, you know, that just got into the country. We want to help them out, and we want to lend them more credit so they can get ahead. No, the cost is too great. Next slide.
Oh, sorry.
So these are the 3 most popular mortgage products: FHA, conventional, VA. FHA is the most popular product among first-time home buyers. And why is it popular? Because it requires a very small down payment, which is 3.5% down, and is the most flexible, aside from VA, is the most flexible product credit-wise. Conventional is more strict. They looked at your credit closer and they penalize you more when your FICO score is a little low. FHA is very flexible. You can pretty much get the same rate if you have a 660 score with FHA than if you have a 720 FICO score with FHA. Not the same case with conventional. They will penalize you on the rate and also on the mortgage insurance, mainly on the mortgage insurance. And VA is for veterans. These are the loan limits. Right now FHA in the Tri-County area went up to 621, 766, 550 on conventional. And the VA loan limits vary a lot, but it's mainly for veterans. If anybody is active duty or already discharged, honorably discharged from any of the military branches, VA gives you 100% financing. So if you have any friends or family who are military and are looking to buy a home, we would love to help you. Next slide. We'll skip that. Okay, Broward County and city grants. Okay, so this is the program that gives you money to buy a house. And it gives you from 40 to 80,000 depending on the city. So when I pre-approve you, I will pre-approve you for both. An FHA conventional or VA loan first, and a down payment assistance loan second. Because it is a loan. Down payment assistance, if you get 80,000 for instance from the city of, I think Coral Springs gives 50, I think Lauderdale Lakes gives 80. So if you get 80,000, it's a loan. It's a zero interest, no payment, 15-year loan, right? And it's a lien on the house. So if you live in the house for 15 years as your primary home, the amount is forgiven. And if you sell the house on year 7, which is roughly halfway through the 15-year timeline, you got to pay about half of it back, right? So they forgive the 15th of the loan every year until year 15. And if you've been the primary occupant of that house for 15 years, and at the end of year 15, the debt is completely forgiven. Next slide. These are the income limits. These income limits are not updated. I think the 50, it's actually 53 right now, but you can see that they are not very at par with inflation these days, right? So most of the home applicants who don't qualify for down payment assistance don't qualify because they make too much money. You have to they stick to these income limits, and they use 80% AMI, 80% of the average median income. So if you are a household of 4, and among the 4 of you, you make more than 72,550, I think that went up to like 80 something now. I have the updated numbers, I'll give them to you later.
And I'll email it to everyone.
Yeah.
If there's not anyone, if there's anyone here that I don't have your email, make sure you give it to me before we leave, and you'll have it by the day's end.
Now, there are a few cities out there that work with 120 and 140% AMI. And those cities, I think Hollywood works with 120% AMI, so you can make as much as what you see on this column in a household of 4, for instance, 108,840. So those cities are a little more flexible for down payment assistance income limits, but most of the city use 80%, right? So you can't make more than that much. If you make more than that, you don't qualify for the program. Next slide. Broward County city grants. These are the cities. So I was trying to remember. The ones that offer, Cooper City offers 80, and I think you all get a copy of this when Jerry emails out the content. And if you see any cities crossed out, it's because they run out of funds. Right? I believe this is the most up-to-date information.
Actually, I think this is like 2022, 2023.
Okay, because I thought Sunrise did have funds right now. So
right now, I think everybody has funds right now.
Yeah, Market is the one that keeps running out all the time, and I think they actually have funds right now. Oh, you can see Hollywood here. It's 120 AMI. It's like the only city on the program, and Wilton Manors here will go to 140 AMI. The only 2 cities that go above 80 are Hollywood and Wilton Manors, right?
Actually, I gotta be careful. They're not grants until they're forgiven. They're a lien against the house until in Broward County, I believe, 15 years of ownership, it goes away. At that point, when it goes away, it's considered a grant because it's forgiven. Other than that, it is a lien against your house. So if you sell it too early, you owe it back. Either way, I've been approved twice. This is the most recent one. This was through Urban League of Palm Beach County. So with that, I have now taken my class and I've satisfied everything, whether in any place in Florida. This is good to go. And then I can apply for whatever available funds there are. Next slide. So now at this point, Raul has gotten you all the way to pre-approval and you are ready to make offers. You arrived at the point where you officially have purchasing power. All right, what now? Make an offer. You have sorted through all the properties that I've sent you. You have found the perfect home for you and your family. It's in the neighborhood you like, and it's well within your budget. Now you need to make an offer to buy the house. I will help you pull up a list of comps, which is short for comparable sales, which is me being like the appraiser in advance. These are similar homes that are recently sold in the same neighborhood. We use the data to determine and support your offer amount. Your offer includes contingencies. What are these? These are checkpoints that protect you for financing and your home inspection as well. Next slide. All right, so now I'm gonna bring up Jason Jabba. He's our title agent. All right, Jason.
Thank you very much. Welcome. I did give you guys some handouts to go through as well. So there's a little pamphlet about my company as well, my business cards there. And then here's some 8 reasons about title insurance and what title insurance is. So, oh yes. Anybody else like you want?
Thank you so much.
So, what is title insurance? So title insurance is insuring you on one of your biggest investments in your life. Obviously, purchasing a home is one of the biggest investments any of us make. Title insurance is one of the best insurances because you only pay it once. You know, obviously, homeowners insurance you got to pay every year, car insurance you're paying every month. This insurance is going to be one-time insurance, one-time payment to insure, again, the biggest investment in your life. Why do you need title insurance? Going through this little pamphlet here, you'll see it talks off errors and mistakes. You know, we're all human. Everybody makes errors. Everybody makes mistakes. But when you're buying a house, you want to hear like, oops, I didn't see that lien. Sorry, you're now responsible for it. Title insurance will insure you for that.
I have one to follow along with you.
Oh, yes. Keep them all here and here. So, filing errors in public records. So mainly, like it says, it can disrupt your ownership. So my lot in my house is lot 69. My neighbor's lot is lot 68. Somebody does a little typo and they put lot 69 on that lien for the neighbor. Guess what? It's a lien on my property now. So that's where you want to make sure that all the liens are clear. Hidden liens that can cost the unsuspecting. So if you just want to trust the seller, oh, don't worry, everything's clear. Buy the house. You're going to find out later on there was a lien on the property that you bought, and now you are responsible for that lien. Liens against a person's name attached to the property. So if I get a credit card, I go default, they record a certified judgment against my name that I owe that credit card, and I just say, sell you the house, that lien attached to that house. So now, when you go to sell the house, you got to pay off my credit card. So again, getting title insurance, they'll do a title search and make sure all those are clear. Buried encumbrances. Encumbrances is like another word for a lien. So there could be an old mortgage from previous sellers. When we do a title search, we go back 30 years because more than 30 years it can be expired. So, but we go back 30 years. So even though the sellers owned it just for 2 years or 5 years, we're going back 30 years, way before their ownership to make sure everything's clear. Forgeries, impersonations. Obviously there's a lot of fraud going on. Somebody forges the property, you think that that's the seller. I tell you I'm Jason Jarvett, but do you really believe I'm Jason Jarvett? I'm going to show ID. I'm going to, as a title company, verify the ID, verify the identity of the seller to make sure that person does have the right to sell the property to you. When previously unknown wills come to light, people die, like you mentioned, the property gets passed on to somebody else. How do you know that person that my parents died, it's my property now? Do you know if I have any brothers or sisters? Do you know if there's anybody else that my parents put in the will and said, well, my cousin, they raised my cousin as well, and they wanted to make sure that my cousin got property as well. So they put in the will that my cousin also gets the property as well. So that's when we, as a title company, we do research that whenever there is, somebody passes away, it goes to what they call probate, and we research it all, make sure the wills and all that come into play. Secret easements. So an easement is a part of your property that the city may put as restrictions for what you can and can't do to it. So a lot of times there's easements for the underground power lines or plumbing and this and that. So the city can actually come to your property, tear up that area, because they need to get down to the underground to fix the electrical work and all that. So that's what they call an easement. Boundary issues. You know, I can tell you, yeah, that's my property right there. But the surveyor comes out and really tells you exactly where that boundary line is. Because it could be confusing, and a lot of times you just look at a house and some of them are a square lot, nice and easy to understand. Mine's like a triangle, you know, so it's really confusing where's my property and where's my neighbor's property. I want to put a fence up, very important to know where your property line is. Because you put the fence up on that neighbor's property line, they can tear it down. And then it's their property. So you want to make sure, as a title company, we ordered a survey so we handle those boundary issues as well. Unrecorded liens. So in the county, they record in public records the liens, the mortgage, as we mentioned, is a lien. Any other liens, as I was mentioning, there's judgments or anything like that, it's recorded in public records. So yes, anybody, if you know how to research, you can do your own research to find out. However, there are unrecorded liens as well with the city. We do what they call a lien search with the city as well to verify any of these unrecorded liens. Open permits, code violations against the property. The seller didn't upkeep the lawn. A lot of times the cities want to make sure your house is painted, make sure you pressure clean the roof. You know, they want to make the city very beautiful, keep it up to date. So they will enforce a lien against that property if the owner is not taking care of that property. You come and buy that property, if you don't know about that, you didn't do the proper research, title company didn't do the property research, you're going to then be stuck with those unrecorded liens as well. So, next page then, this one here is page of the contract. So, I mentioned in my video, if you saw it, who pays for the title insurance? Who picks the title insurance company? You know, that's very important. The contract is what dictates that. This one here shows 3 boxes: seller, buyer, and Miami-Dade Broward provision. Obviously, we're in Broward County. Normally, that Miami-Dade Broward provision is what's checked. That means the buyer pays for the title insurance, the buyer gets to pick the title company. The seller will pay for the title search and that lien search with the city. So, this is where that's the best option for you, because, like I said, the sellers are taking on some responsibility and paying for those searches, but you're also paying for the title insurance, so you get to pick the title insurance company to make sure that they're working for you. Just as Jerry was mentioning about the realtors working for you, you don't want to just go work with the listing agent directly. The listing agent's working for the seller. So if the seller just said, oh yeah, use my title company, that title company may know something and they're not going to tell you because they're working with the seller's interest. So it does depend. Usually, by county it does vary, but the contract is actually what dictates that, and those are the boxes that's selected there to tell me as a title company who's actually paying the fees. And then the next page is another page of the contract, and I printed this one up because it talks about the item C there, seller assistance and cooperation in closeout of building permits. This is an as-is contract, most commonly used contract, and it states, if you read that whole section, in a nutshell, it states that the seller must provide you with whatever plans they have, but doesn't have to spend any money. So if it comes out that a permit is still open, they did work and they didn't finish the work, the permit's still open, they can say, oh yeah, here's the plans of what we did, but they don't have to pay to close it out. There may be fines, fees, all that with the city, You may have to open up a new permit. All these add up to where you may have to take responsibility of that. So working with an agent like Jerry, he's going to know to make sure that he may actually add an extra clause in there that says the seller will close out any of these permits. If you don't, then it automatically states that the seller doesn't have to do it. So it is important to make sure that you work with the professionals that know what they're doing to be able to protect you. Next one, these 2 pages are going to be examples of a settlement statement. So this is a settlement statement breaking down the closing costs. The right side is going to be the buyer's closing cost there, and it breaks down the title insurance charges you'll see there. You'll see there's a lender's title insurance and an owner's title insurance. Now, the owner's title insurance is obviously protecting you as the owner. Lender's title insurance is going to protect the lender. The lender's loaning this money. It's a big investment for them as well. They require title insurance. Title insurance technically is not required for you. As an owner, you can say, I don't want an owner's title insurance policy. I would tell you again, with all those bullet points I pointed out, why would you make the biggest investment of your life and not insure it for a minimal cost? Jerry would mention he has a listing for $345,000. I use that property address there as an example. So at the purchase of $345,000, then title insurance is $1,800 for the owner's policy. Now, I mentioned, are there any discounts available for me? Technically, if the seller has owned the property less than 3 years and they have an owner's title insurance policy, I can get you what they call reissue discount. So if it's more than 3 years, it's not available, but if it's less than 3 years, then we can get you a reissue discount. Reissue discount's usually about 30% discount, okay? Now, it doesn't mean go shopping for a house that's just been owned for 3 years. It just means whenever you do find that house that you love and you go under contract, ask Jerry. Jerry can tell you. He can look in the records and say, hey, these people bought the property less than 3 years ago. Let's ask them if they have an owner's title insurance policy, see if we can save you some money. Also, since you're getting your owner's policy and you're getting the lender's policy, there's what they call simultaneous discount. You're getting both policies simultaneously, okay? Now, the law states the title company can charge a minimum of $25. Now, you tell anybody minimum, what are they going to do? They're going to charge more. Majority of title companies for that simultaneous policy charge $250 or more. I charge a minimum of $25. I have it right there quoted in there, so you can even say, hey, Jason, you quoted me $25 right here. So I always honor that. We always charge a minimum. As Jerry was mentioning, there's, it's hard enough to come up with the down payment and all that. We try to make it to where we can help you get into that home. We keep the costs as minimum as possible. The other fee that you'll see on here that's really only other negotiable fee is the settlement closing fee. Mine's $585. Majority of companies $750 plus. So keep that in mind whenever you are buying. A title company is required as part of the process. I try to, like I said, keep everything as reasonable as possible to make sure you get that home ownership. So those 2 pages were the settlement statement. Closing disclosure was one of the forms that they mentioned earlier in one of the slides. I have an example here. There's 2 pages of that closing disclosure as well. Now, the closing disclosure can get a little tricky in the sense the way they word title insurance is a little different. So it shows, if you look at the closing disclosure, it's the same exact example as that settlement statement that I just showed you. $1,800 for the owner's policy, $25 for the lender's policy. But if you look here, on this closing disclosure, it says the lender's policy is $1,740. I just told you it's $25. The closing disclosure is nationwide requirement, and the law doesn't kind of coincide with Florida's law and the way it works. So the closing disclosure law is kind of like worst case scenario. As I mentioned, you do not need to get the owner's policy. But if you don't get the owner's policy, you're not getting both policies simultaneously. You cannot get that simultaneous discount that I mentioned for the lender's policy to be $25. So if you don't get the owner's policy, the lender's policy would be based off the loan amount, in this case, $1,740. At the bottom then in section H, you'll see there's the owner's policy, $85. So the last page actually kind of shows the comparison between the closing disclosure and Florida premium or that settlement statement, whereas you'll see they total up to the same number. It adds up the same, but that closing disclosure is just kind of telling you if your owner's policy is only an additional $85. Even though when I said the owner's policy is $1,800, if you don't get it, you don't get that discount in the lender's policy. You have to pay the full premium for the lender's policy. You're going to pay $1,740 anyways for the lenders to get their policy. Now you're not insured, only the lender's insured for an additional $85 you get your owner's policy. So that's where it really breaks it down to where it does seem like an owner's policy, $1,800 is a lot, but if you're getting a loan, the lender's going to require their policy anyways. So if you don't get your owner's policy, the lender's still going to charge you that lender's policy. It's going to be about the same amount. It does depend, it varies depending on the loan amount and the purchase price. It is based off of those two factors. So I tell anybody, if you are shopping for a title company, because again, who picks the title company? The contract says buyer or seller. Didn't say realtor, didn't say lender, didn't say buyer or seller. So you have the right to pick the title company, no matter who you're working with. You can shop around whichever title company you want. I'm all about it, because like I said, I keep my fees most reasonable. I'm not afraid if you shop me around. And if you do find a better deal, I'll be more than happy to match or beat it. But I always say the closing disclosure does get more confusing the way that title insurance is read. Ask that title company for a settlement statement. Because again, that settlement statement, like I mentioned, really breaks down what are they charging for that lender's policy. Mine is the minimum $25. If you ask the title company for that settlement statement, you may say $250 there. And then you'll realize, wow, I can save $225 if I go with Jason from South Florida Title Associates. Go ahead, I know there's a couple slides here, you have some pictures. You see me here, but I am backed by a large team. I am the executive director for South Florida Title Associates. These are all my employees, okay? We have 10 offices throughout Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach, okay? I run them all. We have a processing team in our corporate office in Plantation. We have closers here on Tamarack, Lighthouse Point, Coral Springs. In the pamphlet, actually, on the back page, you'll see it has all the addresses of all of our offices. So, you're dealing with a large company. And you're not dealing with a small shop that may close down next week. We are also backed by an underwriter that has more than 100 years. So, Chicago National Title Insurance is our underwriter, and they've been around for over 100 years. They are backing us. God forbid we did close down for whatever reason, your insurance policy is backed by them. So they were always there to back you up. And as you see, there's a little award there. Go to the next screen. There's one of my underwriters. We actually have two underwriters. Giving a nice big award, pretty big award. Not every title company gets these awards. We are doing large numbers of transactions. That's why we got those awards. We close between 100 and 150 deals a month. Okay? You'll see small title companies with less than 5 employees. They'll be happy to close 15 to 20 deals in a month, and they'll pay their bills. They'll be happy. They'll move on. I have a large staff to pay, so we got to close a lot of deals. Next one. Okay. Title agent works behind the scenes. Buyer estimate sheet. I gave an example right there. The settlement statement, the CD. Will give you that estimate to show you a breakdown of the closing costs for that property you're going to buy. The closing disclosure. Again, gave you an example there. Amortizations. So an amortization is, as I mentioned, is the payments over the whole life of the loan. So in the closing package, at the closing, we'll explain to you, it'll show you the interest rate you get, the amount you owe, times that interest rate is your annual interest. Divided by 12, that's how much is going to go towards your monthly payment. Now, so your monthly payment may be $1,500, $500 goes to principal, $1,000 goes to interest. If you pay more, you can pay extra towards it. You're paying down the amount you owe. Your $1,500 payment stays the same, but now $600 goes to principal, $900 goes to interest. Instead of it continues as the years go on. More money starts going to principal, and less money starts going to interest as the years go on. If you pay extra towards the loans at the very beginning, you help speed up that process, and you can turn your 30-year mortgage. They say a rough estimate: if you can make one extra payment a year, you can drop your loan by 5 to 7 years. So you can turn that 30-year loan into 23 to 25%. So, next one.
And I just want to show an example of what amortization looks like for everyone.
Yes, perfect.
So, go ahead and break that down a little bit.
Yeah, so as I was just mentioning then, the payments here, sorry,
So you can see the price up here.
345 price, 3.5% down, so your total loan is gonna be 332,925. Your total payment amount's 1,932.30. Like they said, that's gonna be fixed, that's not gonna change. That's gonna pay your principal and interest, the two portions. Taxes and escrows for taxes and insurance is gonna be additional as well, but this is just talking about the loans portion, that's gonna be your principal and interest portion. So if you go down to the payments, you'll see, like I said, payments never changed, right? But look over here, amount that goes to interest and amount that goes to principal. It slowly goes up principal and slowly goes down to interest as the years go down. And the reason why, at any time, just take the total amount you owe, multiply it by your interest rate, that's your annual interest rate as I mentioned, so it's gonna be the whole year's interest, divided by 12, it's gonna be this amount here. That's the maximum amount of interest the lender can charge you, that's what they're gonna charge you. That's what you borrow, that's what you're borrowing your money on. So the faster you pay this down, even though your payment didn't change, more money starts going to principal, less money going to interest. So if you came into, $10,000, your first payment, you're at 332, you pay down to 325, now your payment didn't change, but 382 went to principal instead of 350. It may only seem like $30, but $30 every month adds up. So that's where you help create that equity even faster. The equity, as he mentioned, is the amount your home's worth minus the amount you owe. So the faster you pay that down, more equity you're creating. And so even though you just made that one lump sum payment, boom, let me just throw it to my loan quick, your payment didn't change the next month. However, you're paying less in interest to the bank. You're paying more in principal, so you're gonna help pay it down faster. It compounds over the years. 30 years is 360 payments. So you could drop it to 300 payments. That's 5 years off. So it does make a big difference.
And all the way to the bottom.
Yeah, like I said, 360, see? So the total interest paid on this loan is $362,000. That's just the interest. Principal, $332,925, that's what you borrowed. That's what you paid back in principal, obviously, over the full 30 years. But the total interest, if you're not paying extra towards your mortgage, it could end up being more than what you even borrowed, just in interest, over the full 30 years.
While those numbers are big, it's still better than renting.
100%. And again, because you're building that equity too. So as the value goes up, or even if the value didn't change, you're paying down what you owe less than what you started with. Otherwise, liens, like I said, there can be all types of liens. Credit cards can become liens, anything, title transfer, title ownership. You can take title as your homestead, as he was mentioning earlier. You claim homestead for your property. The taxes, so your property tax you pay is based off of the value of your property, okay? If you claim homestead on your property, you're buying a property, you want to claim homestead with the county, that taxable value can only increase by 3% every year. Now, back after COVID, home values skyrocketed. People were buying like crazy, values skyrocketed. Jumped 15% in a year. Now, if your property taxes, your value went up 15%, your property taxes are gonna jump, right? Your value can only go up 3%. So that helps you stay in your house. That's the homestead law. It's called SOH, Save Our Homes. So it helps to make sure that people don't get priced out because the value went so high that now my taxes go so high I can't afford the house anymore. They restrict it to just a 3% every year. So you do want to make sure you file for a homestead as well. As a title company, we also have pamphlets that we pass out at the closing for the county that you're closing in to help you figure out where to apply for that.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you very much.
And the next time you see him in those papers that he's got in his hand is the day that you get the keys. All right, and that's a good face to see right there.
Yes, like what I always said, when I'm here at the closing table, I'm the one that signs all the paper and helps hand over those keys to you, so.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
All right, roll 2 slides. All right, so we're gonna change gears, and I want to talk about types of homes. I'm gonna bring in William Bonilla, the inspector, in a couple moments. But you have single-family homes, you have townhomes, villas, condos, and mobile homes, also referred to as manufactured homes. It's important to know the different ones because some are going to be purchasable, some are not, all due to these different parameters. So, 90% of the time, banks will require 25 to 30% down to purchase a condo. So while a condo might be cheaper on the price, it's not cheaper on your out-of-pocket expenses. So there's a huge difference there. A single-family home will have a larger price, but easier on your out-of-pocket obligations. So 90% of the time, FHA loans will not work on legal condos. There are certain exceptions. You come to myself, Raul will be able to figure out those exceptions. But it's very, very specific. Townhouses, villas, condos, and manufactured homes, you will almost always pay monthly maintenance fees. Single-family homes, not so much. 80% of the time, single-family homes do not have an HOA, and you are responsible for all of the maintenance. So very few times, I've seen some single-family homes where there's maintenance, but we're talking about $70 a month, things like that, because there's a shared pool or some type of amenity, and that is it. So that's about as cheap as it gets. Next slide. All right, types of communities and governing bodies. So HOA stands for Homeowners Associations. So with that, you'll normally have homeowners associations at townhouses, villas, and mobile home parks. And you don't want your neighbor opening up a mechanic shop on their front garage. That lowers your property value. So what happens is you create a homeowner association to make sure that everyone follows the rules. The colors are within the uniformalities, and the scenarios can go on and on and on. But that's going to be HOA. Condos, a lot more stricter than HOAs, and all of them pay monthly maintenance fees. HOPA, H-O-P-A, Housing for Older Persons Act. If you're 55 and over, you can save a lot of money if you buy in a 55 and over community, but most of those are going to be cash or some type of specific conventional loan. Raul will talk about that after we do questions and answers. Mobile home parks can be where you own the land and some where you rent the land. If you rent the land, now you're purchasing a vehicle, you're not buying real estate. Real estate has to be attached to land, so it's different. And it's a co-op. You'll never own that land. Again, you're just renting it. And if something has to change, you have to pay a truck to up that thing and move it somewhere else. So, next slide. Get a home inspection. You are not a builder or a contractor, so you can't look at a home and tell what condition it is in. Sure, you can see what's observable on the surface as far as a flaw, but it's what's not readily observable that really should concern you. This is why you hire a professional inspector. The home inspection is an important part of the home buying process. As a professional, I realize this, so I will have a contingency in your contract that requires a satisfactory inspection. What we use is the as-is inspection. The as-is contract. The as-is contract has a provision that says you can cancel for any reason. Uncle Joe came and take a look and he didn't like the cigarette smell. Cancel the contract. You see what I mean? So, the home inspector will examine the structure of the house and all of the installed systems. Next slide. All right, so let's welcome William Bonilla from Wall to Wall Home Inspections, Master Inspector.
Hello, y'all. So I brought some things so you can look at. We'll go over that in a little bit. It's just more of a visual person so you can see a little bit better what we do exactly. So we can actually go to the next slide if that's okay. Before we get into three main types, let me break down what a home inspection is. It's a visual inspection, so we're not taking anything apart. We're going there, doing the best that we can, looking at the roof, attic, electrical, plumbing, air conditioning, the structure, making sure there's no deficiencies in there, nothing's broken, the age of certain things, nothing's leaking. Certain things we use are going to be a thermal camera, since we can't see through walls to see some of the plumbing. This is going to help us and let us know what's going on, if there's any active leaks or too much heat behind anything. Another thing we do use, this is a sewer camera. So underneath the house, most homes in Florida are going to be, older, over 40, 50 years old. We can't see the waistline, but we do, instead of calling a plumber, this goes down the waistline and lets us know what kind of pipes you have down there. If it's broken, what's going through the pipe, if there's tree roots, anything around there that can cause an issue to the pipes under the home. This is just added things that we do to protect you before you get into the house. That can cost you a lot of money, particularly the pipes if something's broken with them. It can be anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000, depending on the home, to fix the piping under the home. That's what I want to show you, those things. So you do have three types, mainly three types of different construction down here. The CBS, which is concrete block stucco. Pretty much is concrete block, and then the protecting the concrete block, they're gonna have stucco. Normally that gets light cracks. What we look for is cracks that are a little bit bigger than, quarter of an inch. If it gets to a half inch, it means we have structural issues and problems. And that's where we go from there, and we evaluate that. And then if it has to go further, we, usually recommend an engineer to check it if it goes to that stage. All right, wood frame homes. Those are a lot of the older homes. Certain cities, Hollywood, Lake Worth have a lot of those homes. You get a lot of wood rot in those homes, unfortunately. That's something we do look for. Pests have a big issue with wood frame homes as well. And then next, manufactured homes, mobile homes. Mobile homes for us, we have a lot of issues because we have crawl spaces under there. We treat those is like anything else. We're going to look for any major defects and problems in that mobile home. We treat it like anything else. Next slide, please. Kind of went over this top part already. The basic things we're going to look for in the home are going to be the roof. We're going to let you know the age of the roof, last permit that was pulled for the roof if we can find it. The two types of roofs we have down here mostly are going to be a gable roof and a hip roof. Those are what insurance is looking for. We'll go over that as well. Am I going over the insurance or someone else is? Okay.
You want to save that for him.
So that's going to be, help you with the insurance, certain type of roofs, with what get held down in case there's heavy winds. Most of the roofs down here are going to be hip or gable, like I said. We're looking at the electrical system. The electrical systems we're looking for, anything in the wiring is going to be a double tap, which means two wires going into one breaker. Any arc flashes means black marks on there, that's going to cause a fire. And different type of panels we're looking at as well. The piping is something we talked about. We're looking anything that's PVC is going to be good. That means it's updated. Cast iron is usually original. Again, that's 40, 50 years old. That's after time, it channels at the bottom and it causes leaks. That's something we don't want. Again, we can't see a lot of the piping, but the things we're looking for are galvanized piping, which is going to corrode in the inside and cause water. The water pressure becomes very weak. Okay. And then pests, which is termites. We are not exterminators we don't have an agricultural license, so we're just looking if we see anything, that looks like it caused any damage to wood, any mice in attics, stuff like that. So we will let you know if we do see anything of that sort in the home or around, and we do recommend if you do get in there, to get service yearly. It's like having a pet, right? You take it to the park, it doesn't have any fleas, but it could have it, other dog could have it, and you can get it and then bring it home. Next slide, please. Alright, so these are the type of roof structures that I was talking about. This is, to me, this is going to be called more of a gable roof. A gable roof is kind of pointing this way, okay? And this is a pre-construction home, which is letting us know, pre-construction concrete block home. So this is what it'll look like before you get into it as you're doing the construction for it. But you can see what the concrete block looks like before you get in there. Next slide, please. Like we were talking about earlier, some homes you're going to see the cracks. Sometimes settlement cracks are okay, but when they start getting big like this and start doing repairs on them, that could be a structural issue. That's something to look for when you're walking around the house. And up here you have the wood. That's something to look for as well. That could be, termites. Usually this is water damage up here. All right, next slide, please. All right, this home is another one you're going to want to be looking for. Is wood frame as well. Mobile homes, manufactured homes look like this as well. There's something to look at. This one is just the crawl space. You want to know, because a lot of these homes over time they drop in certain places, so there's sags in the floor. We crawl under there and look at the piping, make sure nothing's wrong with that, and go from there and let you know if it has to be lifted in certain areas. Next slide, please. All right. So next one's going to be stucco. This is what we're looking for. It's kind of like the skin over the concrete block. This is protecting the home as well. What we look for in this is just major cracking in this or anything to that sort. There are specialists that work on this, stucco guys, that certain ones you hire, certain ones you don't. The ones you do want to, the professional ones usually can get the cracks out, but a stress crack is going to come back most of the time. It's just something the house is going to have. It's like getting a gray hair. It's never going to really get rid of it. You just can paint over it. Next slide, please. All right, so this is a manufactured, mobile home. It is brought in to your land, however you have it. Things we look for on these as well. We're going to crawl under there. We look for any wood rot behind the vinyl siding on it and check the windows. These tend to have a little bit more issues, only because they're lifted and they're just not made as strong as a concrete block. So the biggest things we have on these are going to be softening on the flooring and then roof leaks. Next slide, please. All right, so metal roofs. These can last. It's a newer thing. I'd say it's not newer, but compared to the other roofs, these guys can last. They say 30 years down here or more. They're great. I personally like them a lot. They don't get damaged as much unless you're walking up on them, which hopefully not too many people are. These roofs technically last down here, like I said, 30 years or 30 years plus. And it's something if you want to upgrade the roof, they're lightweight, so you're able to do that. Next slide, please. These are clay tile roofs. These guys, the insurance companies are all different. To us, I like these guys. They tend to break over time. They get a little weak after about 20 years, so stepping on them or if you're pressure cleaning them can leave some light cracks on there. But they are great roofs. They're good for drainage. They're a little more expensive, but they do tend to last a bit longer. If you get this or a concrete block roof, they're great roofs. Next slide, please. And then you have a basic shingle roof. Again, this is a architectural roof, so which means it's a little bit more. They have a 3-tab roof, which is the bigger shingles. They don't last as long. Okay, down here these get beat by the sun a lot, so you're getting life expectancy on these. They're going to give you 20 years, maybe with a warranty. You're going to look at 15 to 20 years, you know, hopefully taking care of it. But the most you usually get out of these is 20 years, usually. Never say never, it could be longer, but most places are gonna go around 15, they get beat up a lot, especially probably the next one's gonna be a flat roof. They tend to not last long as well. Next one, please. Yes, so flat roof, this one's been sealed over, so that's one way to protect it a little longer. Flat roofs, I say 10 to 15 years. Again, they're gonna give you 20 years on these as well. The problem with these is they pond a lot of water on top. Okay, so over time, certain parts of the roof are gonna hold water, especially with these trees around. All the tree leaves are gonna sit on top of there as well, where that water is sitting. So it's good to go once in a while, get out there and just, like this place, they resealed it, and just check it every once in a while. These guys tend to leak a little bit more than the other ones. Okay, next slide, please. This is Federal Pacific. So a Federal Pacific is an electrical panel, so usually original to the house, and if you have a big issue with these guys, you'll get into it when you're trying to get insurance. Usually, they're gonna make you replace it before you get into the property. Replacing one of these, depending who you call, if it's outside or inside, usually it's about $1,500 per box, okay? That's what you're usually an estimate looking at to replace these guys. The problem with them is they don't use the insurance companies have is they don't trip. They tend not to trip, so they can cause a fire. Next slide. Challenger. Gonna be the same thing as the other one. They don't like insuring these guys. This is just the type of panels they don't like. The next slide, please. And Zinco. Federal Pacific and Zinco are going to be pretty much the two bigger ones. Usually it's the breaker's not tripping, which is going to give you the issue, okay? So if you see anything like this in the house, just be prepared. If you look at the panel, you see a Zinco or it says Federal Pacific on it, be prepared that you're going to have to change it, or the Challenger. Most of the time it's going to have to be replaced. That's something you're going to look at cost for that, okay?
So if whoever was used to own the space recently changed his legal name to the chance?
Yeah, he'll get into that with the insurance. As far as that goes, I know sometimes it's grandfathered in, but most of the time if you're getting in there, either your rate might be higher or they're gonna make you replace this right away, okay? Because I'm gonna flag it, and most of the time the insurance is gonna go from there. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is probably gonna be the last one. This is a Zinco Sylvania, which is another panel that's going to have issues. Anything of these kind of breakers that don't trip like that are just going to cause trouble in the home, again, with electrical or anything like that. Most of these wiring is going to be original, which probably has cloth wiring into the outlets and everything else, which is something, you know, further in if we even do get into that. But yeah, that will cause things not to be grounded, and that's another reason why it can cause fire. Next slide, please. All right, so this is an old fuse panel, okay? And the only thing before that is knob and tube. So knob and tube, fuse, and then you got the Zinco and Federal Pacific, and these are the new ones here, okay? It's probably a GE or something, but this is an updated panel. This is what you want to see, all the labeling on here, the breakers, the GFIs, and anything else on there that's tripped at the box, if, you know, in case there's a fire, or in case you're too close to water, it shuts off at the panel or at the outlet, so it protects you a little bit more. Next slide, please. Okay, so we were talking about this panel itself. Looks like it's gotten water damage, and we can see one of the breakers has a double tap. We were talking about some of like the Federal Pacific that has two wires going into one breaker. That's an issue, so we would flag that. This one actually has three, so we would flag that, and we would definitely let you know about potential, you know, hazard with the water going on here. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is the cloth wiring we're talking about. There's two different types of cloth wiring. This cloth wiring, I won't say it's bad. It's bad, but it's not as bad as the original cloth wiring. So original cloth wiring is cloth wiring. Then it has the wires in there that aren't sheathed, okay? These wires are protected inside this cloth wiring, but this is still not safe. It can cause a fire. But the one that's a little bit worse than that would be the cloth wiring with just wiring underneath it, which is, again, if it gets too hot, it's just easier to catch fire. So we definitely, it's a big safety issue, and we would flag that for you. We normally find that in the attic, and once in a while, when we're testing outlets, if most of the outlets are coming back not grounded, we take panels off, and if it's going to the outlets, that's another big price issue that you could have with this. You know, it can cost you to redo all the wiring in the home, $6,000 to $10,000, depending on the home. But this is a pricey thing. Next slide, please. Ken, the copper pipes, it's not something where most homes have them, but we just can't see through the walls. The only areas we're going to see these pipes are going to be, at the toilet or under sinks, or unless the home is pre-construction or pre-drywall. We might see these, but it's hard for us to see any of this stuff. That's why we have the camera to try to help us, but if there's any leaks in there, this would catch it. But most homes are going to have copper piping. Next slide. Again, that's not something we can really see in a home. If it is, we're going to catch it with the camera, and if it's an active leak. Okay, next slide. All right, so this is a PVC drain line. Some of these are cast iron. This is what this camera would do. Imagine this under the ground at the house you're trying to buy. We wouldn't be able to see. This pipe would go in here and see all this stuff here if anything's leaking or if anything's damaged. Or if you're under a crawl space, mobile home crawl space or anything like that, we would check all this waistline piping for you. Okay, next slide. The PVC pipe, this is what most homes are going to have now, the newer homes, or if you're updating anything in the bathroom, they should be updated with PVC piping. You're going to see this under sinks. Anywhere you're going to see piping now, you should see, it should be PVC, even the clean outs now outside. Okay, next pipe. All right, polybutylene. These guys are around in the 90s, 80s, 90s, and they still make this, but it's updated now. The ones in the 90s, if anything's built in the 90s, we double check or we ask if it has any polybutylene in it, because these pipes get brittle over time and they leak, especially at all the ends here. They just break and leak, and most of these pipes are a lot of them are in the ceiling or in the wall. So if you see any homes, a lot of homes in Coral Springs area, you'll see this, and if it's built anywhere from 89 to like 96, we want to check and ask if it has any polybutylene piping, because again, these tend to get really brittle and break over time. All right, next slide. Termites. We are looking for pests while we're doing inspections. At least our company does. And we do have a termite inspector that checks as well. But while we're at the property visually, if I see something there, I will let you know. Normally we find termite damage like this in an attic or around the home on the outside if it's gotten really bad. We have 3 different types of termites down here. We have the drywood termites, subterranean, which go underground, and then there's a hybrid one, which is subterranean and drywood termites, which is called Mason termite, I believe, and they're by a water source, and they do a lot of damage. So it's something that you definitely want to get checked out and get your home. If it's really bad, you get it tented. If not, they do spotless treatment for you. But depending on how bad the damage is, you might have to repair some framing. Normally we see this in the attics. Next slide, please. All right. So these are going to be the droppings of the termites. Most of the droppings are going to be called frass. The lighter the color, like the color here, that means it's fresh, okay? That's when you start seeing wings and stuff like that. The stuff in the middle is what you're going to normally see. You'll find it in random spots in the ground. It looks like coffee grinds. They're really small droppings. Yes?
Well, those are salt and pepper, coffee grinds, and the last one is termite pellets.
Okay, yes. But yes, most of the time, it's going to look just like this. All right? The newer ones you'll see, because it's starting to, it's old droppings and fresh droppings, and fresh droppings are lighter. So you're going to see stuff like that, but most of the time it's going to look like a little pile of dirt, just literally like these coffee grinds there, just around random parts of the house. Okay, if you hit something and little black stuff comes off the ceiling, and this is most likely pest droppings. Next slide. All right, so here we go. This is the frass. This is new droppings. If you see this color, that means they're in the home, and it's usually get termite season down here 2-3 times a year. So you got to watch out. You got to look for wings and new fresh frass like this. That means it's active. Okay. The darker ones, they could be there for years. So if you hit something and it's dark, could have been there for a long time. If you start seeing dark just randomly in certain spots, it's because they're fresh again, and all the old stuff's coming down. Okay. Next slide. All right. So the shape of these guys, you're not going to see this shape unless you magnify it like this. But we're talking they look like little tiny versions of this. Looks like small footballs. They're really small. You wouldn't even see this. It just looks like small little anthills. Okay. Next slide.
That's it.
That's it. All right, y'all.
From the bank/lender to determine the value of the home. In most cases, the lender has a larger financial stake in the deal, so they want to make sure that the house is worth the money, the amount we have agreed to pay for it. So they're lending you, but they're taking all the risk. You see, so they've got to insure their risk. So if the home meets the appraisal, meaning if it's worth at least as much as the purchase price, then the loan will probably get funded. If the appraisal comes in low, we might ask the seller to lower the price or simply walk away from the deal. Next slide. Next. All right, so I want to introduce our homeowner's insurance agent, Lloyd Stein. Now, without him, at the end of all of this deal, if we can't get insured, we've done all this work. We've been emotionally attached. We spent so much time to a house that can't get insured. The deal is dead.
It happens.
So that is super important to get him involved early on in the transaction.
Yes, sir. Hello, everybody. My name is Lloyd Singh, owner of First Choice Insurance. I've been doing this about 20 years or so. We are licensed in a few states, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina. 2 offices to serve you. Our main office is in Hollywood. We do have a branch in St. Lucie, but we can write anywhere in the state. So we're a full service independent agency, and what that means is that we broker out to all the different carriers. So we do the shopping for you, versus if you go to an Allstate or State Farm, they're only shopping that one insurance carrier for you. With me, I go to pretty much everybody except those 2, but we do our best to find you the best auto, the best home, commercial. We pretty much do everything except life and health. So that's a little bit about me. So now that you're under contract and you've done your home inspection, Jerry then forwards your inspections to me. I review them, and then I tell you if we have any issues. So next slide. All right, so I kind of just went over this about, what we do, and basically what I am looking for is your 4-point inspection and your wind mitigation inspection. That's what's most important to me. Your home inspection is your full inspection report that shows every nook and cranny of the home. I don't want to see that. That is for you. I only care about the 4-point and the wind mitigation. I'm not sure I don't remember if you went through this, but the 4-point inspection is an eligibility inspection. So that tells me that the home has no leaks. The electrical panel and the electrical system is in good working order. Your air conditioning works because we are in South Florida. We don't want any mold. We want a working AC unit. And the roof, most importantly, is intact. It's got useful life remaining. There's no leaks. So that is basically what a 4-point inspection does for you. We want to make sure that the main components of the home is insurable. The wind mitigation is your discount inspection. That tells us how old the roof is. When William goes up in the attic and he takes pictures of the nails that were used and how the roof is constructed. And if you have hurricane impact windows or hurricane shutters, that is a huge discount. So that inspection is your discount inspection. That is what gets you the best rates. Other discounts that we look for is stuff that you'll probably get after you move in the home, such as if you install a central burglar alarm, or most carriers are giving things like 55 and older and things like that up front, but there are a few discounts that you can get. I also run a flood zone determination for you to see if you are in a flood zone. You know, if you are in a flood zone, your lender will require it, you know, for you to carry flood insurance, but you will also get a quote from me for flood. And you know, with a flood insurance policy, you know, that's more so for condos, interior flood, but flood is, you know, building and contents. So that's a little bit what I will be looking for once your inspections come to me. Go ahead with the next slide. All right, so the average cost for homeowners insurance in Tri-County, Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, is roughly $5,000 to $6,000. I know that's a large number. Just go back in history a little bit. The last couple of years have been rough in this state. We've had a lot of fraud, a lot of litigation. We've had storms, we've had COVID. We've just had a lot of moving parts that have happened, and it's destroyed a lot of industries. The insurance industry was one that took a huge hit. You know, pre-COVID, I would say the average rate in Broward County was maybe $2,000 to $3,000. Now it's significantly more. I mean, those larger homes that you would see easily 10, 15, 20 grand for homeowners insurance. So the average home, like what the listing that you have, we ran
$345 is the price?
Yeah, it was around 4,000. I think I had given you a rate for. Yeah, it was around there. So, you know, that's a little bit of why it's that high. I did have the pleasure on Wednesday of this week to meet with our state-backed insurer, Citizens. I don't know if you guys have heard of them, but Citizens is our largest insurer in the state. There are signs that our industry is recovering. There's investors coming back because there was legislative put into enforce to prevent fraud and you know, try to bring back our rates, bring them down. So by 2025, this market should be a lot healthier. There should be more insurance companies to choose from. Healthy competition creates healthy rates. So that's something that hopefully we can look forward to next year. But as of now, that is a huge cost that will be, you know, incorporated when, you know, Raul runs your mortgage payment and things like that. Some of the most common issues that are causing delay in insurance is roofs that are non-permitted. So that means that someone put a roof on and they did not tell the city, or they did not pull a permit on that roof. The reason we have an issue with that is if that roof is not installed by a licensed person, we don't know if it's installed properly. So, you know, we insure that home and it leaks, the carrier has no recourse. They can't go back and call the roofing company that did it and said, hey, you installed this roof a couple years ago, we got put on a claim for it. Why? You should be the one fixing this, not us. So that is the reason why non-permitted roofs are a big no-no. Yes, they can be insured. It has to go through an approval process, but it can be insured, and it's a bit cumbersome. And it's a discount that you lose when the roof is not permitted. So that is something to look forward to. Any obvious signs of leaks, such as your AC units, are a common one with condensation. You know, it is hot here, the ACs run a lot, the AC condensates. I can't tell you how many pictures I've seen where the AC is just outright leaking and the homeowner will not fix it. What ends up happening, they have laminate floors, it creates mold, they have this big loss, and it creates a lot of issues. So also underneath sinks and bathrooms, bathtubs, they don't want to see any type of plumbing issue because that is a recipe for a water claim and a disaster for you guys, and mold. So those are things that we're really looking for. Older roofs, like the shingle roofs that have granule loss, after about 15 to 20 years, you're going to see it deteriorate. They automatically know the minute hurricane season hits and we get a light storm, it's going to probably leak. You're probably most likely going to have a claim on it. So that is, you know, those are things they look for with that. We discussed AC leaks. Electrical panels is another thing, as he was just discussing with the Sylvania, the Zinskos, and the Challenger panels. They don't trip, so that's a fire hazard. All the policies cover fire, so a lot of the carriers will not want to be on that risk. Our state insurer will take them. There are one or two companies that will take them, but you know, you're not going to have very many options in terms of rate. The rate is going to be the rate until you change that panel. Once you do your inspection, Jerry can then sometimes go back and renegotiate that and say, hey, we need a credit for this. And maybe the seller might change it, but it is something to look for once you're looking at your inspection. I've seen inspection reports that just make the home totally ineligible for coverage just because they've just got too many things going on. The seller does not want to do anything to fix it or help the situation. You don't want to put money into a home that you don't own yet, so the whole deal falls apart. So it happens. If you do find someone willing to take a house the way that it is, it's going to be very, very expensive, where it's probably just going to knock you out from being able to afford the home. So, I've had that happen already, so, it's good that we catch that up front. Roofs, back to roofs, it's a big ticket item. They have to have at least 5 years remaining life to even be considered if they're older. With citizens, they have to get pre-approved if it's less than 5 years, but if it's 5 years, it has to have at least 5 years remaining useful life in order to get coverage. Otherwise, if it gets denied, the whole deal will end up, will fall apart. Patches. People try to just patch things. They find a handy guy, glue a shingle on. They don't like to see roofs that are rough and patched up because, again, it's a recipe for a leak or a loss. So, those are things to be considered when you guys, if you're there at your inspection, you should be asking your inspector for pictures or, go up there and see it if you can. But that is a huge deal, is roofs. Next slide. Again, more roof stuff. Plumbing, let's talk a little bit about plumbing. Plumbing, as he was saying before, the polybutylene, those flexible pipes underneath the sink, all those things can be a recipe for a disaster for water leaks. Two-story homes are notorious for that. I've had a claim where it was a 2017 home. The toilet had a little plastic that popped. They weren't home for a few days. Came home, the whole downstairs was flooded. They came home to a flood. $100,000 loss, easily. 100 grand. Because it was sitting there for a few days. They were gone. And, just something as innocent as that, it can just pop. In Florida, we're hot, cold, and it can pop. And that's the reason for that stuff. So carriers are really, really tight on plumbing. Like almost every carrier will do their own inspection on top of your 4-point once they insure the home, because they want to see for themselves. And usually they will come back and say, hey, this shows that you need to fix it, or there shows signs of a leak here, or something. Trim your trees back. We don't want trees touching the roof. When we get storms and the lightning hits, it catches your house on fire. They don't want to see trampolines. They don't want to see pools that are just open where kids can just fall in. They don't want to see appliances outside on our decks where kids can just go in there and get hurt. All those are exposures that the carriers don't want to see. So, those are the things that are heavily, heavily underwritten by the carriers, is your plumbing, your roofs, your electrical, anything that can cause a claim is what they're going to be on you to fix. Because again, going back to the high rates is because people were not taking care of their homes. They would file a claim, the insurance company would pay for their entire remodel of their home, and then the homeowner bared no responsibility of maintaining their home. So in essence, their homeowners policies were being used as maintenance policies, and that's not what they were intended for. So that is why our rates are as high as they are, is because of the losses. So that's why they scrutinize these things as much as they do. So that's pretty much what we look for. Next slide. So new construction, all of the companies love it because it's up to code. Chances of a claim is less likely because all the plumbing, the roofing, electrical, heating, everything is up to date. So typically 2010 and newer, you're probably going to get the best rate on insurance, and you'll have the most carrier choices because of, they love new homes, love it because, again, they're up to code and less likely for something to happen. I know, new construction is a little bit scarce over here, but if you can get into a newer home, great. If not, that's okay too. We just have to maintain those older homes. Water heater, the tanks, they have a tendency to explode or leak or rust. Those can cause big claims as well. The tanks, they're comfortable with it up to 15 years old. After 15 years old, even if it looks impeccable, they will want you to change it. They just don't want it to explode, rust out, back up, anything like that. Tankless water heaters, because they don't hold water, typically there's no restriction on that for right now with most carriers, but water heaters that hold water, 15 years is the life in most cases. And some of our carriers, as I said before, we are a broker. Those are some of the carriers that we broker to. And those are the top carriers in Florida, in Tri-County, that's actually open for business. And a little bit about that. Citizens, again, is our state insured. They are willing to accept those that can't get insurance in the private market. What's happening is Citizens is our largest insurance carrier in the state, and that's not a good thing. They are heavily trying to get policies out, because I compete against it all day long. I may give you a nice quote from Edison with all the bells and whistles and all the coverages. Then you have another agent that gives you Citizens for $200 less. It's the state insurer. It's a crappy policy. And, a lot of things are not covered with it. I get sometimes you have to go there, but if you have the option to go with a private carrier, that's probably going to be your best bet. But we do our best. I know things are tight sometimes. I know insurance is expensive. We do our best to get you the most discounts. Our agents will talk to you and say, hey, if you change this door, you can get the hurricane credit and your rate goes down $500, $1,000. We will advise you and we'll hold your hand and walk you through that. But that's just a little bit of what to look for when you're shopping, is the carriers that you're going to be with. And one last thing is, once you become a homeowner, you will also get a discount on your auto insurance. So usually at that time after you've closed, we'll usually give you a call and say, hey, now that you qualify for the auto discount, let's run your auto and see what we can do for you. That's pretty much it, I think. Next slide.
Insurance is super duper important. There are a lot of things that he said. I will be doing my best to see things from the beginning perspective all the way to the end, to actually determine, hey, will insurance work out or will it not? Will the inspection work out or will it not? Will the finances work out or will it not? So I'm like the glue that holds it together, the concierge of this, so I would be able to prevent time wasted and only focus on success. Houses that are going to work, both physically, legally, and then you've got the personal aspect of the seller, whether they're realistic or not. They could be in Disneyland mentally, and I see it all day, every day. So, realtor representation. You're not required to use the listing agent to see any houses. It is almost always to your advantage and will almost always save you money to have Jerry as your buyer's agent. It is a form of representation. Next slide. Buyer mistakes. Okay, so I want you to pay close attention to this one because this happens again and again and again. Mistakes that homeowners make that you can avoid. Next slide. All right, they get too many friends and family involved in their home buying decisions. Everybody becomes an expert all of a sudden. Have you ever bought a red car and all of a sudden every car on the road is red? Yeah. When you start buying a home, all of a sudden everybody's a home buyer and everybody has an opinion and everybody's a realtor. Or everybody's a mortgage broker, everybody's an inspector, your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your neighbor, your coworker. Cut the noise. Cut the noise. If that's not how they pay their bills, don't listen to them. It's really that simple. Because they will get in the way of you buying a house. They wait for the perfect house. Raul, is there a perfect house?
There is no such thing.
There's no such thing as a perfect house. All right? They wait for the perfect conditions to buy. Raul, are there perfect conditions to buy?
There ain't no such thing.
The best time to buy is when you have found the right home and you have the money. That is it. You're not an investor. Don't wait for the economy to change. Don't wait for things to go up and down. You're not a cash. I have cash investors. I have fix and flippers. They wait. But we're just buying to live. We're buying to have babies. We're buying to, because the baby's left and now it's time to downsize. Whatever it is, it's for different reasons.
If I could chime in on that,
Yep.
I think the best time to buy is whenever you're renting.
Makes a lot of sense.
So a lot of people are concerned about interest rates and this and that. And my question to the average renter is, what do you think the interest rate is on your rent? Well, everybody stares at me with that same blank face you have now. Because the interest rate on your rent is 100%. It's 100% because 0% of that comes back to you in equity. So regardless of what the interest rates are, it's always better to own versus
So
rent.
that means I said if I can pay rent, I can pay mortgage.
That's right.
Yes?
A lot of people have that argument. Oh, well, I don't want to buy because then I have to pay for the repairs. Well, whose money you think is paying for the repairs? The landlord is using your money to pay for those repairs. So, they write unrealistic offers. I understand everybody wants to save $1, but it's not okay to lowball. You know, all you're doing is wasting everyone's time. They feel the need to negotiate if the property is new to the market or if the price is right and popular. If it's priced right and popular, the good ones go quickly and at full price almost always.